How you going, everyone? Just going to be raw dogging it again with no script. Today I'll be building up and painting the Vindicator for my Space Marines army. As a professional with less than a month's experience in this hobby, I can firmly believe you should listen to everything I say, and I know exactly what I'm doing. But anyway, enough of me going on about how perfect I am with my less than a month's experience. Let's crack into it. After a couple hours, it's pretty much just a rhino with an extra sprue on top. It's got pretty much all the extra stuff for a rhino you'd expect, and then a couple of extra plates as well as the bulldozer scoop and just the little points of contact so it can sit in there pretty nicely. But overall, it was pretty fun building. For the hunter killer missile, from my previous Razorback, you can see I've liked to have the armies collecting skulls of their enemies. So I've put on, I think it's a knight face or something over the front, and I'm going to be doing something similar with the other one. I'm going to be putting on just a troll skull over, or skull I mean, over the front of the face, just to give it a bit more different look. Although in the video it does look quite easy, I'm telling you right now, it was an absolute pain in the arse trying to put this orc skull on the hunter killer missile. It just kept popping off over and over again, but after a bit of fiddling and fandangling, I managed to glue it on, and overall looks pretty good. Now, the main attraction, the reason why I bought the Vindicator is that I really like the look of it, and also it is quite a nice heavy piece of machinery for taking out other tanks. And for taking out other tanks, you expect it to rack up some kills on the battlefield. So I've got the Citadel Skulls box, and I've chopped off the back ends of the skull, so it's a nice flat 90-degree surface, and I've glued plastic cemented on a couple of skulls on the front for a nice ring around the barrel. Now, I just did want to test to make sure the bullet still does fit in the barrel, so it's not, doesn't really make sense, although this whole bloody thing doesn't make sense. Now, as it is just a sharp cutoff, I decided to blend it in a bit by adding more skulls, and I've done that by doing it on a 45-degree angle, I'm pretty sure. So the skulls are still looking forward, but they're sort of like, when you're looking down the barrel, they blend into the background, which I overall think gives it a much nicer look, instead of just being a flat end. And then I just filled that up with sprue glue, or the hard edges, just to round everything off. Now, equipping the scoop back on the front, it does cut off the rest of the barrel, so you really do pay attention to most of the skulls. But however, we're going to have to pause it here, not the video, just me, as I'm recording this anyway, as my tools haven't arrived yet. So get back to it when I get my tools. Now, after waiting a couple of days for the pin vise, I just wanted to drill out all the barrels and the little muzzle parts, I'm not sure what you'd call them, on the sides of the weapons, as well as drill in holes into the exhaust ports on the top, as them just being filled with plastic just looks kind of odd in my Razorback, so I thought I'd do that, and just drill out the sides as well on top of that. Over to the large scoop now, and I've just got the pin vise and just dug in a couple holes all around the scoop, as that it's pretty much its main counterpart to help protect from being shot constantly, which overall, in the end, it does look quite good. After that, I just want to drill in a couple of extra holes, as in the bits box I have a couple of spikes, and all of my vehicles in my army, I want to have some cohesion, so all three of them do come with a triad of spikes on either the left or the right side, just to give it a bit of an extra different look. Back over to the scoop now. I've got myself some Tamiya putty. I saw this online. I'm going to fill in the larger hole, wait for it to somewhat dry, not fully dry, and then get the back of a paintbrush and just push in a hole so it seems more like a thermite round or a more deeper impact. After being too impatient, I ripped off the back piece of plastic that was holding the putty in place, and I accidentally took out a massive chunk of it with it. However, now it looks more like a thermite hole, which I believe looks way better in my opinion, so I'll just be leaving it as is. Now, as the right side hasn't been getting much attention at the moment, I've picked up, I'm not too sure, I don't really care about the Tyrannus so much, I think it's a Screamer Killer Claw, and I'm just cutting off the tip of that, and then I'm going to be gluing it on. Back once again over to the scoop now. I wanted to add just a couple of extra skulls and extra parts, as it's mainly used for rolling over things. So I've just grabbed a 3D, I'm not too sure it's from, I'm pretty sure it's a Tyranid hand that was 3D printed, so I'm going to have to use super glue since it's made of resin, and I'm just going to glue that onto the front, as well as a couple skulls on the other side. And after a quick Vallejo prime with black, I just wanted to slap chop on some grace here just to be able to see a bit of the extra details, as it's a bit harder with just a fully blacked out model. Over to the scoop now. I wanted to put on some hazard stripes, however I wanted them to be in the army colour, so I've done a Wraithbone and a Corvus black. I've started out by just stippling on the Wraithbone underneath as the base coat. After a few layers of that, as well as putting on some hobby tape or masking tape to lay out the lines, I'm now going to stipple over with some Corvus black. And after waiting for it to all dry, not fully dry, but just partially dry, carefully peeled off all the tape. Overall, I think I did a pretty good job for my first attempt at trying something like that. And now for the silver section of the bulldozer part, I've got some Stormhull silver with me, and since it's a more high metallic sort of flakiness, it's going to be more shiny, and in doing that I've also mixed in some Corvus black, so it's a bit darker but it's a bit more shinier than just standard lead belcher. As it was still a bit too shiny for my liking still, I've just covered everything in a null oil just to bring it down a bit, as well as bring out a couple of the corners and, just overall bringing a shade to the corners and everything like that. Now, starting off with the weathering, I just went in with a lead belcher in the bullet holes. And I just went over that with a bit of sponge chipping to simulate all of the shrapnel that would fly out from a bullet, and just any other sort of battle damage as well. Overall, it's coming really well. It's coming really well together. And I just wanted to finish off with the thermite sort of hole by using the Tamiya Weathering Master with the soot. It's like a little weathering makeup sort of thing. You'll see it later in the video, but I just went around that with most of the holes that were a bit larger, as well as just a little bit on the white sections, a bit of like dirt or dust or just overall soot flying around. Now once that was all done, pulled out the sponge chipping once again, and I went in for a more of a bit of a brighter, just standard silver lead belcher type mix, and I just went over all the corners as those sections we hit the most. Now, when applying Wraithbone, I didn't do it here for the skulls, however it is a very good idea to apply a much lighter coat, whether it be a white scar or a Corax white beforehand, as overall Wraithbone just doesn't really, you have to put a lot of layers on a darker colour. So other than the skulls here, I'm just going to cover all the accent areas that I want with a Corax white, and then just go over it with the Wraithbone. Next up, I just went over with a Baden Black for all the areas I'm going to be dry brushing with lead belcher. Starting off, I've just got some cheap dry brushes I picked up off Amazon. I'll just chuck them down in the link below. But what I previously used to use is paper towel. However, that's a really bad idea if you want to keep the paint on. I advise getting a Tupperware or a piece of plastic or some sort of plastic plate, and just overall wiping off all the excess paint off your dry brush and then applying it instead of just using the paper towel. Otherwise, it will be quite streaky. Next up, I'm just going to go at it with all my silver metallic paint and just paint up all of the vents, all sorts of extra sections like little panels, just to give it a little more pop than just a flat Corvus black. And on the Screamer Killer Claw, I'm not really that good at doing organic matter at the moment, so I just went over with a Nun oil just to try and add shades and colour, as my paint collection is quite limited at the moment. Next up, I used some Tamiya panel line accent, and overall I really do recommend picking this stuff up. It's really good for adding detail to nuts and bolts, and also adding more of like a depth to vents and all sorts of crevices all over your models. Now for my army, I have a colour scheme of the Wraithbone, the Corvus Black, and then a metallic red by using just whatever metallics I want depending on how bright they are, and then just covering that with a Blood Angels contrast paint. Next up, I'm just going to go out with a couple of layer paints by adding on a yellow, blue, red and orange to the little Y sections connecting the vents just to break up the colour. Now I went over with a bit of Stormhole Silver and just lightly painted on all the bolts on the tops just by catching the edges, sort of like a highlight, an edge highlighting. After that, I did a bit of an edge highlighting overall just to give it a bit more so you can see the edge, the edges obviously for edge highlighting, but I did that of a 25 to 75 mix of Corax White and Corvus Black. After that, I just edge highlighted all the Wraithbone areas with just a flat Corax White. Once that was all out of the way, on over to the fun section, I just went over with some lead belcher and I just sponge chipped all the most of the corners around near the bottom of the tank and just where bullets and overall wear and tear would be. After that was done, I painted in all the fog lights with a nice Batharoth blue for layer paint, and then I'm still trying to learn OSL. I couldn't really be bothered trying to pull out the airbrush as of late, but I'm just trying to do it with a paintbrush, but I'm telling you, it is difficult, especially on such a flat surface area. The two lights below look a bit better, however the large fog light just looks really weird, and honestly I probably would have taken it away. However, I'm just going to leave it for now as it's not really a showcase model, it's just something to play with. After that, I made a glaze by using some brown and I heavily diluted it. I think it was like 2 drops paint to like 6 drops of matte medium and water just to get a nice glaze. And then I went over that with all the skulls just to give them a bit of an aged and weathered effect. And for the finishing touches, brought out the weathering kit again and just went over the very front skulls of the barrel with the soot as if it's been charred and burnt from firing out of the barrel. Now, overall, I think I did a pretty good job as a professional of only a month. I think, a really nice, mostly focused attention at the front end, so not many people would be looking at the back and all the other sections I've missed. I have left out the bullet and the cable at the back at the moment, as it's just not something really you're going to be paying attention to. Plus, I don't really have any sort of like brass or bronze colors for the actual bullet casings themselves, so I'll probably pick some of that in the future. But overall, what do you guys think? It's more of an inspirational idea just for anyone who wants to take note or copy any ideas or anything like that. And that's all I got really. Hope you guys look forward to my next video. Catch you around.